Today on Disruptors for Good, we sit down with Sinclair, founder and CEO of Mural, to explore how stablecoins are turning cross-border payments into real-time, low-cost, and transparent experiences for businesses and creators around the world. Sinclair shares the personal story that shaped his mission, from growing up between the United States and France to seeing the limits of local currencies in West Africa. We break down stablecoins in plain language, walk through live use cases with the platforms like Opera and TaxBit, and dig into why marketplaces and banks are adopting programmable payouts at scale. We also cover the policy momentum behind the Genius Act, what compliance looks like in practice, and how account portability helps money follow people wherever life and work take them. I hope you enjoy the conversation.
Sinclair, thank you so much for joining me, man. It's we've been trying to do this, and I'm so excited to chat, man. I think what Mural is doing and what you and the team are building is pretty incredible. And stable coins is having its moment right now, but you and the team have been building way before it was cool, way before it was known to the public as much as it is now. Before Mural, talk a little bit about your journey.
Yeah, well, first of all, Grant, thanks for having me here. I know we've been trying to get this set up for a couple months now, and I'm glad we're making it happen. It's been a crazy past couple of months. So yeah, a little about my journey. So I was actually born in Colorado, grew up between Colorado and France. So I've always been, what I say, cross-border in nature. And I've always grown up speaking different languages, grew up using, Western Union with my grandmother, her sending me money from France to the US. And so got exposed to a lot of that from a pretty young age. And then when I was 14, I actually went to Togo for the first time. My grandfather's from Togo in West Africa. And when I went there, I noticed how a lot of my family there was disconnected from the global financial system. And notably, it was very tough for people there to have access to dollars, right? And so the main currency that folks have access to in Togo, for instance, is the franc CFA, which is still to this day largely produced by France. And one of the big problems with that is you don't have access to more stable currencies like dollars, for instance, and it really constrains your growth when you're trying to build a business, support your family, your community, your city, your country. And so that was really the first seed that was planted in my mind. And, over the years, I ended up working at Palantir as a forward deployed engineer, and then as a technical lead, got exposed to the world of data and what it means to integrate, large scale data applications in large companies and a lot of automotive companies like Comcast, for instance, telcos, and realized that, moving after I'd left Palantir in April of 2021, after we took the company public, and I was thinking to myself, when I look back at my life, what is that like deeply meaningful project that I can look back and say, wow, we did it. We had that really personal impact on the world. And for me, it was really how do we really rethink money movement around the world, and how do we connect more people to the global financial internet? And I feel very grateful to have had that in the US and France. And how do we bring that to more people worldwide? And so that was really, what marked the beginning of Mural. And this was back in, 2021 when I was having a lot of these thoughts, and then started Mural in January of 2022, back when people didn't really know about stablecoins, and it was a completely different era.
So for those who maybe don't know what stablecoins are per se, maybe because everybody sort of knows what Western Union is, but maybe compare it to Western Union a little bit and why it's better, but then also explain and go into detail what Mural is and what sort of its mission and vision is.
Totally. Western Union did a great job of connecting physical locations around the world where you can pick up cash, you can send money to someone, and then quickly pick up cash. The way I think about stable coins is if you're a consumer here in the US, you're probably using Venmo, right? If you're abroad, you're probably using Revolut. And platforms like that have done a great job of making money feel pretty instant when you're sending money around that way. And we specifically serve businesses that are doing payments to vendors, for instance. They might be doing payments on behalf of consumers. And when they're doing that actual money movement, they need something that is highly programmatic, it's scalable. You end up paying thousands of people, hundreds of thousands of people. And so you really want something that can move quickly, right? That's the first aspect, is you want money that can move quickly. The second aspect is you want to save on fees, right? So you want to use whatever system can help you save on fees. And then the third aspect is you want transparency. You want to know where the money is in flight, when the money's moving from the US into France, US into Mexico. Those three things is what stablecoins offer, right? So it's a new technology that gets you better speed, better fees, and better transparency, right? Put very, very simply. The actual underlying mechanics, leans heavily on blockchains. For instance, you can think of blockchains as the highways, right? And high-speed highways effectively. And then you can think of stable coins as the cars within the highways, right? And so by having these high-speed highways, you can move more cars throughout the world, right? And you avoid congestion, you avoid traffic, and you have these stable coins, these cars, right, that get to move very quickly in these high-speed highways, right? At the moment, the way money moves around the world, there's a lack of high-speed highways, right? And there's oftentimes congestion. And so, right now when you send money sometimes from US into Japan or US to Brazil, it might take a couple of days because some of those high-speed highways haven't been fully built out or integrated. And for us as a business, what we do is we connect all of those high-speed highways, right? We connect all of those high-speed highways. We ensure that the cars can move as quickly as possible, which then means, more money, more cars can flow throughout the world. There's my highway car analogy. But oftentimes people think stablecoins are this fancy, complicated thing, and it really isn't. I think there's a lot of noise in the space and there's a lot of headlines out there. And so the thing that we really focus on is one, we do not use the word crypto. I have a very hot take that we should fully ban the word crypto. And instead we should talk about real-time payments, digital assets. We can talk about blockchains for the rails, right? If you want to get a little more technical, we can talk about private public key encryption if you want to go a little lower level. But for what it's worth, for consumers and businesses, the main thing that they need to think of is do you want to run on the high speed highway, or do you want to be stuck in a small street?
Yep.
Right? You choose which path you'd like to be. And now most people, most businesses are now choosing, let's move to the high-speed highway.
Talk maybe about some case studies. I think it gives listeners sort of a good idea of tangible, because when we talk stable coins, even, we'll say the word crypto, it sort of rolls over people's eyes. One, because stable coins is probably more useful abroad than it is within US to US sort of, population, right? We kind of don't understand, the real value it brings to cross borders and not within the US ecosystem. But maybe talk about a few use cases that Mural has done in general, or just generalized use cases, whether it's remittance or any other use case that we can kind of make sense of.
Totally.
What the capabilities are.
Totally. Yeah, would love to ground this. So there's three types of businesses that we work with, right? One is platforms.
Mm-hmm.
The second is fintechs. And then the third is banks and financial institutions. So for the first one, platform, I'll share a couple of examples. One of our customers is opera.com. They are the fourth largest browser company in the world, right? So behind Google Chrome, Safari, Firefox, right? And then you have Opera. Opera has Opera News, which allows for people to contribute various news segments, content pieces throughout Africa. And one of the problems they wanted to solve for was, how can we pay thousands of people at scale who are all contributing to news? And one of the most effective ways for them is actually to do it through stablecoins, because you are able to pay thousands of people instantly. All of the contractors are able to receive these stablecoins. They're basically digital dollars. And once they receive it instantly, they can decide what they want to do with that. So they can either withdraw it to their bank account, they can withdraw it to a wallet, for instance. And that is a lot easier for them than, for instance, collecting all of the bank account details of 5,000 people, and then doing a Swift transfer, for instance, which will take 1 to 3 days. And then if you have anywhere between a 5 to 10% failure rate, then you have to follow up with, 500 people, anywhere up to 500 people who have, maybe it's been delayed, for instance, maybe the money actually hasn't arrived, maybe it's been sent to the wrong currency, for instance. There's a lot of failure modes, right? So for a platform like Opera, we want to pay a lot of people at scale quickly, and we want to save on fees. Then, for instance, one of our other customers, which is a platform type of customer, is TaxBit, taxbit.com. They do accounting services and for some of the largest businesses out there, specifically stablecoin and crypto accounting. They have customers like PayPal, for instance, Google, Kraken, and more. And for their use case, they have a great accounting platform. They have all of the data, and they were looking for a partner to enable them to do cross-border payments. So to settle invoices in different countries around the world, to receive money in,
Gotcha.
right, to collect money in, and they're using our infrastructure to do that, right? So in the TaxBit example, it's a direct integration into their platform, so minimizes the integration that they need to do to get up and running. And then, of course, for fintechs and banks, what these fintechs and banks are looking for are a couple of different aspects. One aspect is they want to be able to receive stablecoins so that they can then deposit that into bank accounts, right? So it's a new way to receive money quickly on behalf of customers. Another aspect that's very important is being able to spin up dedicated accounts for their customers. These dedicated accounts allow them to hold money on behalf of their customers, very similar to how you might have a bank account with Chase or Bank of America. It's effectively the exact same thing, but it's a stable coin account underneath the hood. And then the third aspect is being able to send money out of those accounts, right? Being able to send, you can either send directly to a bank account, you can send money to a stablecoin account, for instance. You have that flexibility.
So what comes to mind is like, when I'll talk to like marketplaces that, they might have 1,000 artisans around the world. They might be making furniture, or they might be, making purses, like hand woven, like really, really interesting stuff. Right. But it's hard to get them sort of paid, right? So they have to, get onto the marketplace. The marketplace takes the customer's payment, and then they distribute it back out to the artisans. You can see how there's a lot of pieces that go in here. There's probably a lot of fees taken out across the way, and then eventually it gets to the artisan. And so maybe with in that use case, then the marketplace could just set each artisan up with a stablecoin account and immediately send them 99% or 99.5% of the funds in their wallet directly to them. And all they would just need is a phone. Is that right? I'm just trying to understand, like looking at that use case that I'm familiar with and some of our audience might be familiar with.
Yeah. So the marketplace example is actually an excellent one. You have a marketplace. They integrate the Mural API, right? Our application programming interface. And what the marketplace can do is then spin up dedicated accounts for all of the users on the platform using the Mural API. These accounts can then receive money into them, right? So the marketplace can collect funds, right? They can store it in an escrow account, for instance.
Gotcha.
And then upon completion of something or upon receiving something, they can then move it from the escrow account into the end user's account, right, on the marketplace. And then that user can sign up with their phone number, email. It works with phone number, works with email, works with Touch ID, Face ID, for instance, and then withdraw that to their bank account or withdraw that to another stablecoin account, for instance. Now, the beauty is the user doesn't even have to know that it's a stablecoin account. The user just views it as, oh, wow, this is my dollar account. And Marketplace has given me a bank account.
Wow.
And I can actually store money from my other gigs, for instance, outside of this marketplace, and I can earn more and just put more in this account. Now, what's really interesting for the marketplace is the marketplace can then take that a level further, and the marketplace can say, hey, I actually want to allow my users to earn 4% a year from just leaving their funds in the account, right? And they can offer that yield through us, right? And because we're using stable coins, we're able to offer that programmatically easier. It's a lot more scalable. So for the end user, what they see is, okay, I have $10,000 in my marketplace account. And at the end of the year, I have earned $400 by it just sitting there. Right? The marketplace can basically become a bank without being a bank.
I mean, it's really just incredible, man. I mean, we just the doors as this is going to open is just really quite insane. We're sort of, you mentioned API before, we're sort of APIing the US dollar in a way. That's how I look at stablecoins. And
that's actually one of the better. That's a great analogy. We're APIing the US dollar. That's exactly what's happening.
And which, I mean, to me is the most incredible thing blockchain has created. And I know people's, obviously the brand of Bitcoin is big and Ethereum, but the technology that, let's say, the crypto or blockchain environment has created, perhaps by not even intentional, right? To me, is the stablecoin ecosystem, which is the greatest to me is the greatest thing that this technology has ever created, because the ability for people around the world and, really inflation-based economies where their currency is just brutal, man. You wake up every day, you kind of don't know what you have, right? And that's such a different element for us in the US. We have a stable, currency, but others in the world, they have other issues they're dealing with. And to not know if your currency is going to be what it's worth like 2 weeks spans is
stressful.
crazy, right? It's
Crazy,
really crazy.
stressful. You start the month off, with the equivalent of $1,000, and then at the end of the month, that $1,000 is now worth $500. And quick story. I remember when I went to Argentina last year in 2024, I remember going to the restaurant, and at the restaurant, I would see the menu, and they had little pieces of tape on the prices.
Hmm.
The prices were updating so quickly that every week they were updating the prices, and they couldn't keep on reprinting the paper just because the prices were getting updated almost on a daily basis. And when you think about it, like imagine if you're going to your Chipotle here and the prices are it goes from $10, Tuesday it's now $11, Wednesday it's $12, a week later it's $15, right? Shift prevents you from planning long term, right? For your family, your community. And so you end up being in this more fight or flight mode, which is, how can I string together money to make ends work? And I remember one of our earliest customers, A Teamwork, they work with a lot of virtual assistants in Argentina. A lot of them were earning in Argentinian pesos, and then A Teamwork came along and said, hey, we're going to hire you for US-based companies, and you're going to get paid in stablecoins. And all of a sudden, they started off with 10, 20, 50, now 100 plus, all of them getting paid out in stablecoins. And not only that, they're bringing family members, friends. Now they're thinking, all right, how can we support our local school? How can we support our city? And so the ripple effects are just incredible.
Even from a small business point of view, like in general, like they now have the ability to, it's not just from a consumer standpoint, right? If they can accept, US dollars and, they can, like you said, hold them, that it gives them a little bit of asset insurance and just a little bit of a bucket of clarity on, they can kind of always go back to this sort of fund, let's say, if they can save some of that. But it kind of goes back to just the upstream effects of, hey, the consumer pays a small bit. Can the consumer pay, let's say they get paid in with a stable coin. That's one thing, right? But can they use it within their economy, within their environment? To me is the next evolution and sort of a big step that it's, hey, does a small business owner accept this? And if they do, okay, well then he or she has got to pay rent on their small business, right? Does the landlord accept it, right? There's sort of these layers of that still needs it to get into that really makes this start to be incredible.
And the way I think about it, there's actually a lot of parallels between what we're doing at Mural and what we did at Palantir. And for those who don't know Palantir creates software to connect a lot of different data sources for businesses so that they can make sense of their data and take smarter decisions. Now, Palantir's had a pretty big AI element to it. One of the things that we were doing at Palantir was you had to make sure that the new cloud-based system software that we had back then could integrate with the older data systems, right? So like the older computers, the older Oracle, SAP systems, right? And you wanted to make sure that data could get pulled from those systems and then move out into other systems. Here we have the exact same thing in the money movement world. Just as you said, Grant, like when you get stablecoins, how can you actually spend it, right? Because some people don't have a stablecoin account. So you want to make sure that it can go into a bank account, for instance. You want to make sure that it can get loaded up onto a card. You want to make sure that it can go into a digital wallet. You want to make sure that it can pretty much travel anywhere, right? And so that's where we spend a lot of our time building out, once again, those highways so that you can move the money in and out as quickly as possible in as many routes as possible. And so now the way we actually win here is, going back to the marketplace example, is not a single user knows that there's any stablecoin tech. I think in a couple of years out from now, people won't even remember what stablecoin is. The grand majority of folks around the world won't even know what stablecoins are. Give it 10 years, everyone will have forgotten what a stablecoin is, and it's just going to be running in the background.
Well, the current payment system stack that people don't know behind the scenes when they just make a debit
Yes,
card or credit card payment at a local store. All the
it's
things that go behind the scenes, that is much more complicated and so many more parts. So this even simplifies obviously that in a lot of ways.
that's right.
Uh, the one thing that's obviously been sort of big and in the news is now policy is coming into effect around stable coins, and the Genius Act was just passed, and there's some other policies that could come down the road. Were you kind of paying close attention to sort of the Genius Act and ongoing policy and what that means for Mural Pay and the stablecoin industry? I guess what's your thoughts around what's being done at the policy level?
So back in 2022, when we started the business, there was a lack of policy. And every time we showed up to talk with a bank,
Yeah,
fintech,
yeah,
right, folks would run away. They would say, no way we're getting anywhere near that. We've heard about this crash, this, and that. Fast forward to 2025, right? 3.5 years later, it's a completely different ballgame, right? So the Genius Act allowed for banks here in the US to be able to hold and transact with stablecoins. And, a couple months ago, I was just in Colombia and I went to meet with one of the largest banks there. And I said, hey, in the US, there's the Genius Act and you have all of these banks, Santander, BBVA, and more that are all launching stablecoin projects. What are you doing about it? Right. And they immediately responded, well, we're looking to do something. Where do we start? And so the conversation has really turned. And what's going to keep happening is as more and more policy and regulation rolls out, we're going to see wider spread adoption. Right now, we're in this point of inflection where there's just a wave of businesses, banks, and fintechs, marketplaces that are really coming in. And even a lot of traditional folks that you would not expect. For instance, we've been talking with music royalty distributors. You'd think, are those folks playing in the stablecoin space? Turns out that royalty distribution is actually incredibly complex. When you collect money from Spotify, right? All of the users listening to Spotify generates money for the artists.
totally.
It
It's
goes.
kind of like the marketplace model.
It's the marketplace model.
It's just a different, you know, it's just a different like artisan. It's just music labels and art, but it's all the same thing. You're right. I could see YouTube streams, Spotify, Apple Music. You have streams from so many different areas that come into this one bucket, or they probably come into 5 different buckets.
That's
So
right.
you got, and then you have to almost like bundle them up. So yeah, no, that makes incredible sense.
Yeah, yeah. So to your question, it's really led to drastic adoption across the board. And I think over the next, what we're seeing at least over the next year, we're going to see even more folks come out with,
Mhm.
the latest projects that they've been working on to enable real-time payments and stablecoin accounts. And so, you know, it's a really exciting time to be building in a space. It's a really exciting time to be working with companies that are thinking outside of the box and want to solve problems for artists, for users, and marketplaces. And personally, I am so excited because this is the moment we've been waiting for a while. And it's been 4 years of building Mural, and every single day it's going back out there, seeing how we can solve the right problems. And it's not an easy journey. As with what you're creating, it's you gotta there's a lot of momentum that you need to build up, right? And you have to see how can we cut out the energy drains and how can really focus on doubling down on momentum. And the other aspect for us as a business is we want to work with the biggest businesses out there in the US and around the world. And so what that's meant for us is we want to make sure that we have the right compliance and security in place. And what we're proactively doing that a lot of other folks are not doing is we are getting our full money transmission licenses. Right. So we're laser focused on getting our money transmission licenses. This is what banks have, larger fintechs like Stripe, for instance, have.
Okay.
And we're really focused on making sure that we have the right licensing, the right set of policies and procedures, and the right people on the team to make that a reality, right? And that's allowing us to open up the door to much larger businesses and financial institutions who are looking to get into this.
You mentioned Colombia, and for example, if you talk to whether it's banks there, different companies, maybe even governments at some point, mention Argentina, Mexico, they all have their own currency, right? And when you sort of pitch stablecoins, is it pitching the U.S. dollar stablecoin, or is it pitching a peso stablecoin, or are you just pitching, let's say, hey, we have the technology and you can kind of do what you want with it? Or is it all built around US dollar infrastructure and them sort of embedding that into ecosystem? Did they see
Yes.
that as
Yeah.
as a detrimental thing to their own currency in a way?
Right now, the wedge in, right, the conversation starter is get started with the USD stablecoin.
Mm-hmm.
Could be USDC, could be USDT, for instance. Get started with a USD denominated stablecoin. And that's the first step, right? That's step in the door. And once you get step in the door, then naturally they start thinking, oh, how does this work with Colombian pesos? How does this work with Mexican pesos? And so the step that we're going to see over the next year is actually more non-US denominated, USD denominated stablecoins coming out. And what I'm in particular really excited about is we've actually had a couple of fintechs approach us, say, hey, can you actually create stablecoin accounts that can hold digital Colombian pesos, Colombian stablecoins? We're now seeing that demand happen right now. Last year we did not see that demand. Now we're starting to see that demand. And what that looks like is, the reason why they want that is they want to be able to offer accounts where they can collect in Colombian pesos, for instance, on behalf of their customers. Think, a business in Colombia, for instance, that does tourism and they're collecting some of their payments in Colombian pesos. You want to make sure that those Colombian pesos can live in your stablecoin account, because the alternative is you have to go and open up a Colombian bank account.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We've gone through that process of opening up a Colombian bank account. And guess what? It is incredibly complicated. It's tough, right? And if you're a fintech and you're dealing with thousands of businesses, would you rather be able to spin up an account, with a couple lines of code programmatically, or do you want to go through the process of trying to integrate with local banks? And so
Unbelievable.
that's really the value add, is once you have these local stable coins, Mexican peso, Colombian peso, right? We have Euro stablecoin, for instance.
Yep.
That's automatically compatible with your stablecoin account. You can just turn it on with the flip of a switch.
I'll end on two questions here. The first will be, what's the Mural Pay business model? Is it a monthly fee, an annual fee for the technology, or is it to technology's free? We just take a small sort of BIP on all the transactions. I guess just talk about the revenue models for the company.
Yep. So we have three models. The first one is we make money by charging foreign exchange fees. Right? So we effectively make a margin when you're converting from dollars, stable coins into local currency, Colombian pesos, Mexican pesos, Euro, Chinese yuan, whatever it might be. The second is more of a SaaS model where we charge based off of accounts that you are using, based off of identity verification, business verification, individual verifications that you're using on the platform. So that's more of your traditional SaaS usage-based model. And then the third aspect, which is quite unique to us, is we have a forward deployed engineering team, DE team.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a model that we had at Palantir, where we effectively deploy forward deployed engineers. They go live with your company for anywhere between 1 to 4 weeks. And they're sitting side by side, the CTO, CPO, EO, whoever it might be. And they're just living and breathing on a day-to-day basis. They're dreaming about the problems, and they will do whatever it takes to build the right integration. And what's really interesting about this model is not only are they accelerating the go-to-market and building a deeper integration with the right architecture, they're also taking the learnings of, here's where our API, our platform falls short. And we should actually bring this feature back into core product, right? We need, for instance, a receipt, right? A receipt generation, so that whenever you send money, you have some sort of receipt that can use as like proof of payment, right?
Sure.
That FDE will then go back, build that feature and ship it out for that customer. And then we'll take that feature and we'll deploy it to all of the other customers that are similar to that one. And so they're part of the product development team as well. So these FDEs both do sales and implementation, and then they do the actual, product development component. So for that FDE model, we charge as well, right? It's a variable cost structure depending on the complexity of the project, size of the business. So those are the three ways: transaction fees, SaaS usage based, and then for the FDE model.
The first one, I know people are going to think, well, that sounds a lot like the Western Union model, right? But what's different, I guess, is speed, and it's probably 80% cheaper than Western Union. Is that sort of the caveats there?
Yeah. So, we were talking about music royalty platforms, right? Where we were talking about marketplaces, for instance. Some of the fees you see there, right, are anywhere between 1% to 5%, 7% as well. What we've seen on average, we're saving folks anywhere between 20 to 90, 95%.
Wow.
Quite a bit.
Yep.
On some of the higher ranges, folks are getting charged 5%. And then we're able to bring that down to 0.5%, depends on which currency, right? And so we've seen some drastic cost reductions. And so it's a different model. And ultimately what we're going to see is those foreign exchange fees are going to come down worldwide, right?
Yep.
It's really about saving more money more quickly.
The last question I'll have, and we'll end on this, is just a little bit about the future. And you and the team have built so much. You've kind of, again, been there before it was, cool and interesting, and there was funds flying all around the sector. That you were kind of building, you know, in a silo, right? In silence a little bit. Just so now that you sort of, you know, past that a little bit, what do the next sort of 3 to 5 years look like? What are some of the goals and successes you and the team would like to achieve?
So there's a lot that we need to build out. There's a lot that we want to achieve. And to start off with, the type of experience that we want to deliver to our customers, I'm going to describe to you the type of experience that we want to deliver. The current experience, which maybe you've experienced yourself, right? Or anyone here listening to this has perhaps experienced this, where you get payment, $10,000 for something you sold on a marketplace for a service you did, and you're trying to withdraw your money, but the money's stuck. So you have to call the bank or you have to call the marketplace, and you're going back and forth, and it's taking days, might take weeks, might even take months. We've heard of some folks with their money being trapped up for months, and it's really this stressful experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or you're a business where you're trying to integrate it, and you've kind of duct taped together a lot of different tools, and it's not really working, right? It's not really flowing, and you have 100,000, 5,000 person team trying to manage all of this complexity. That take all of that pain and complexity that you're feeling there. And what we want to deliver, right? The user experience we want to deliver is, okay, money is now clearing instantly, right? It's moving from your marketplace account to your bank account within a matter of seconds, matter of minutes. You have a larger payment, right? Great. You have an invoice that's attached to it. We use artificial intelligence on the back end to scan it, right? We then move that data directly over to the bank itself or whoever's receiving it. They acknowledge, great, now we understand what's the purpose of this payment. The money's not held up, right? Any type of request for information, for instance, is handled by teams of agents plus humans so that you can have the most seamless experience possible, right? When you're shopping or when you're contributing to a marketplace, or if you're an artist, right? Instead of getting paid 3 months later, you get paid a same day or within that week, you get or you save on those fees, right? And then for the folks who are in, places like Togo, for instance, Argentina and more, you can open up a dollar-based account, right? You can receive your money, you can save, you can build wealth. You move from just how do I get enough money to how can I build my wealth empire, right? Where folks are thinking from this wealth generation mindset. Yep. And that's really the type of experience that we want to deliver around the world. And that's why we're working with businesses who have that mission and who are helping people. That's really the experience that we want to deliver, right? I'm just kind of painting the picture there.
Yep.
Ultimately, what that means is, Mural needs to become a household name, just like Stripe is, just like JP Morgan is. And so that's the type of household name that we want to become. And in order for us to get there, we need to work with the biggest businesses out there here in the US and around the world. And so that's what we're laser focused on right now. And, a couple of years out from now, we'll look back at this moment and be like, wow, those were the early days of stablecoins. And remember that time when it used to take a couple of days, couple months. So yeah, honestly, Grant, it's a pleasure talking with you here about stablecoins. What day are we? October 15th, 2025. We'll look back at this moment and be like, that was a point of inflection for Mural. That was a point of inflection for the space. And, it's people like you who are helping people like me share our stories. Really appreciate you taking the time.
And one more thing before we go is we talk about movement a lot, but also as we're talking through this, what's really interesting is that if that person moves from France to the UK or to Singapore or to the Netherlands, something like that, they have that account still with them, right? Like you can always have that as sort of you move, and that's sort of the power in this is that it's sort of this global account that you can move around the world with. Move to another country, it's to open an account. It's
setting up from scratch. I mean,
brutal.
I did it, moving. I was living in London and Berlin and Munich and Paris and Spain. I'm guessing you've probably experienced as well, right?
The Netherlands, yeah. We lived in Amsterdam, yeah.
So you know how it goes, and it's stressful. But that's the neat thing is your account now moves with you, and you don't get strained.
I think that's such a. I don't know if I see that being talked about enough in this space. Is how, the stablecoin account moves with you.
That's right.
Throughout your life. I think it's such an interesting point there. So, Matt, Thank you so much, Sinclair. This has been an amazing conversation, man. I wish we had 2 more hours. Best of luck to you and the team for the next decade to come, my man.
Thank you. No, this was great. Grant, I really appreciate it. And for those listening to this, if you want to learn more, come find us at muralpay.com. Feel free to send me a message on LinkedIn or email, whatever works best. And I want to continue to work with great people who want to change the world. So if that is you, please reach out.